You know, I do have an update on our current status of D&D. I say as I look at Moste in the chat, since he's around for this, and he'll be able to clip this later. I have an update on where we sit at for D&D and everything. All of us have sort of finalized where we are with what we want to create and stuff, and we're getting our character art created with our D&D, and we're working on a start time. So if you look at ye olden calendar here, we're trying to start on a Tuesday, and we're trying to look for, in the future, what date would be good. So I think all of us are pretty busy in this time. But I think maybe sometime before the end of the year, on one of these 3 Tuesdays, we might be able to start. And we're working on getting everything ready, and then we got to get an overlay created and everything. So we'll probably have a new campaign that we're going to start either late this year or early next year, and it should be pretty fun, I think. I need to have a layout made, which I will ask Sid for probably, for a podcast. And I think my plan for my podcast is I'm going to see when Steve is free next week. It doesn't matter what time or day. I'm just going to ask if Steve is free any day next week after he tries Guilty Gear. After he plays Guilty Gear this weekend at Arc Revo, I'm going to sit down Steve and be like, hey, Steve, let's talk about Guilty Gear. So I'm going to drag him over into the studio I have over there and mic us both up. And we'll do a podcast, Steve and I, the two of us, where we talk about the new Guilty Gear, his impressions after he's played it, and talk about who's qualified for TWT and CPT and shit like that, and probably talk a lot about anime and Demon Slayer and shit. So AJ, I would probably like to do a lot of them live, but I don't know if that one will be live or not. And I think I would want to do my podcast bi-weekly. And I think I'm going to have a rotating guest on, usually. Any chance of bringing back the recipe and kicking the router? Yes, we almost have everything finished for that as well. The only problem is my hands are still messed up. So we have to wait until my hands are okay for me to play. If I think I can gather enough guests and be consistent enough with the podcast, I will try to move it from bi-weekly, once every 2 weeks, to weekly. If I can get a person every week, and if I'm sure that I can be consistent with it. Then we also have the monthly podcast, which is Afternoon Tea. We're going to do another one of those at the end of the month. And then I'll have the D&D show that we do on Tuesdays. So besides the normal content you guys get Monday through Friday, Tuesday D&D stream, and then maybe another day of the week will be the podcast, and then the weekend will be the monthly podcast. The recipe is back. You guys must have missed this when I showed it a while ago. This is the almost done version of something that you guys will see for the new show. Does it have sound yet? No. I don't know if we did even a YouTube video on this. Hey, shut up, Moste. Quit it, Moste. It's almost but not quite done version of this. All right, so that's the plan. That's our plan, my plan for content and everything on the channel. I don't know if there's other stuff that I'm not making that I should be making, but that's the upcoming plan. Sometime after this weekend, I'll sit down with Steve and shoot the very first podcast. Then also the mix, as soon as my hands are better, essentially. I'm just waiting on my hands to be okay so I can play. We can't, I don't want to play and mess up my hands. Rubber hose style is what I like, yeah. People call it Cuphead style. Don't say that to Sydney. She'll fucking stab you.